It's the Jersey Baseball Show for today. We welcome you to this TGIM feature. Thank God it's Monday, and we are talking a great story of perseverance. We're talking about a great story of overcoming obstacles. We're talking a great story of great pitching here. We've got Josh Cohen, our guest today, who's at Sacred Heart University now, ready to show his stuff, formerly Bergen Community College, formerly UConn, Indian Hills High School, with a great story for everybody. And welcome, Josh, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So by the time this airs, you will be back at school. Let's first, before we get into your story, just talk about your excitement for the season. See how we get Sacred Heart to the top of the NEC. You know, it's a tough conference. You got Bryant, you got a couple other schools that are. Central Connecticut was the champ last year. But how are we going to get Sacred Heart to the top, and how excited are you to get to show your stuff on the D1 stage?
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. This is actually technically my first season of college baseball. I don't count my JUCO season because we played 13 games in the middle of COVID, so it wasn't really the real thing. So this is gonna be a real thing for me. Very excited for the team as well. We performed very well in the fall. These are all new guys to me, so I love all of them. Had a great time with them, and I see a lot of success with our team, especially our pitching staff. Really good stuff. And my pitching coach. Shout out to Coach Maz. He's the GOAT.
Definitely. And you just mentioned something. I mean, with I guess with everything with COVID, you are technically still freshman eligibility, right?
Yeah. So as crazy it sounds, everyone always asks me that. So my freshman year was the COVID year at UConn. And then when I transferred to Bergen, JUCOs in New Jersey didn't count towards eligibility. So this will technically be my first year out of 4, and I'm 21. Yeah. So that, you can do the math with that, but it's kind of crazy how life has worked in the last few years.
The world's oldest freshman, and that's perfect because obviously your story is anything but typical. So why should that be either, right?
That's right.
So growing up, baseball prodigy, outstanding talent, travel baseball, hitting mid-80s early in your high school career. Everything was going, great, and certainly on a D1 track. And your life changes on July 4th, 2016.
Yeah.
Take us through what, that and what happened, and we'll talk about, what happened as a result.
Yeah, so guess kind of long story short, July 4th, 2016. This is my summer going into my junior of high school. Originally class 2018, had 3 class 2019. So on that day, July 4th, I took a picture with some friends, zoomed in on that picture of my face in that picture, and I saw the right side of my face right here. It was a little distorted, saw my eye was popping out a little bit. Didn't think much of it, I was 15 at the time. What do I care? I'm growing a lot at the time. As a freshman, I'm about 5'4", maybe 5'5". And by the end of my sophomore year, I was like 5'10 and a half, 5'11". So I grew a lot. So I'm like, oh, it's a growth thing, no big deal. So a few nights later, I'm out to dinner with my family, sitting across from one of my sisters, Kaylin, and she goes, Joshua, what the hell's wrong with your face? And my mom goes, stop making fun of him. But then she looks at me and she goes, yeah, and I believe that. She goes, stop making fun of him. That's her first reaction as a mom. But then she looks at me and she goes, wait, something is wrong. Looks like right side of your face is a little distorted and whatnot. So I noticed that, but I didn't know anything, about it. So then immediately, a few days later, he took me to the pediatrician. So that was our first course of action. He didn't especially say what was wrong, but he saw something was definitely not right. But he didn't want to pinpoint what it was. So he sent me to get an x-ray, no cysts, no fractures, nothing like that. So I'm like, oh, it's a growth thing. I'm growing a lot. And then I went to a few radiologists, went to ear, nose, throat doctor. They didn't see anything, saw a bunch of these professional radiologists. And one in mind, he obviously put a glove on, put his hand in my mouth, and he's like, feels like there's a lip of tobacco in your mouth. I'm like, it's a good thing because I don't do that anyways, but obviously why would I have a lip in my mouth right now? And he goes, it's weird, it just feels like there's a mass there or whatever. So I'm like, okay, it's probably a growth thing. I don't know what it is. No one knew what it was. You don't ever expect cancer to begin with. So
ever, let alone at age 15.
Exactly. So it's not on our minds at all. Yeah. Exactly. So then they sent me to get a CT scan and MRI, and that's where it popped up. So on July 20th, 2016, I was diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer called Ewing sarcoma, specifically in my zygoma bone, my cheekbone right here. And then immediately about 7 to 10 days later, so it was August 1st, 2016, started my first day of chemotherapy. That went from August 1st, 2016 to April 7th, 2017. And in the middle of that, I had proton beam radiation. So that was November 15th January 6th of 2017, which actually I just came across my 5-year mark of radiation, of being radiation free. But that was my story. My life changed on a dime. And yeah, that's the story of Josh Cohen right there.
Yeah.
Life changing.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're 15 and everything kind of flips, and just day to day, right? You don't know. Now, one thing that I found kind of, I guess it says all we need to know about you is that, was it right before you began treatment? You're not supposed to be doing anything. One last, you go out there one last time to throw, and what happens?
That's right. So this is July 18th, 2 days. No, it was a few days before. I think it was maybe the 17th. And I knew I was speculating what was going on. I knew something wasn't right with my health. And I knew there was something, looming above. So I was like, okay, this might be my last game for a while. Let it eat. Let it all out. You don't know what's going to happen. I ended up throwing a no-hitter, which is crazy enough. I threw a no-hitter at PCTI. It was during a summer league game, I believe it was. And that was pretty special to me. It was pretty crazy. And 3 days later, diagnosed with cancer, had to be on pause for about 10, 11 months. And then I actually came right back. My first game back, I was still bald, fat, everything like that. And I didn't let up a hit. I struck out the side, struck out all 3. And I was like, I'm back, baby. I'm back. So.
Really, football players, you hear about them throwing a touchdown pass on a broken ankle. Like, that's impressive. You had cancer, you throw a no hitter. Right?
And I didn't even know it at the time.
And
exactly.
didn't even know. That's right. That's right. So
yes.
Anybody since then, or anybody who ever would have doubted your toughness, I think that kind of went away, I would think.
Yes, I would hope so.
But obviously the treatments, your life changes instantly, right? I mean, you scheduled to be going into your junior year with at Indian Hills with one of our buddies and your lifelong friend Joe Maselli, who we had on here recently. And obviously then instantly that's not happening, and your life becomes hospital and chemo treatments and transfusions, and for otherwise, because you weren't sick, right? I mean, you weren't, like, there was nothing obviously nothing physically wrong with you.
Yeah, no,
hard to grasp.
I had, leading up to that, I had no symptoms whatsoever. I had no side effects. I was a healthy kid, 15 years old. I just had hit 87 for the first time in my life, which is pretty crazy for me as a 15-year-old. I was at a showcase, hit 87. I was feeling great. The only thing about me was I ate everything. So, like, I wasn't fat, but, like, I was kind of, like, thick. And I would eat I was 15. You're a growing kid, you eat anything. And I was that's what I was doing at the time. I didn't feel anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, on a snap of a finger, you're like, my mom comes to me, and then I'm in the hospital at one point, and then my doctor sit me down. They're like, Josh, you have cancer. And then the famous story I tell everyone is the first thing I said when I was told I had cancer wasn't, am I going to survive? The first thing I said was, when's the next time I can pitch again? And I always say this. I say this in every story I give, is you can call my doctors on it. You can call my mom on it. That's exactly the first thing I said, because, I didn't know what I was getting into at the time. Still 15, you're immature. You don't know what's going on, but I knew I was going to survive. I just wanted to play baseball again, man. Like, that's been my passion since I was maybe 5 years old. And that's all I wanted to do. So,
What was the hardest point? Was it just not being able to play? Were there other low points that you had to kind of mentally get your head around and bounce back?
In a baseball sense, you talking?
Just that whole kind of journey through everything to become, to be clear of cancer.
Yeah. So, the toughest part, I think, for me was going to, because I still wanted to participate in my team's practices as much as I could. No matter if I was going to treatments, my mom recalls a situation too, where I just had a blood transfusion and a platelet transfusion. And I was like, can I just go to a practice? Like, I just want to watch them practice. I want to do something. I can't, do this. I just can't just keep doing this. So we drove to my practice, and I just got there at the end of practice, and I was like, all right, I want to run the bases. I want to do something, So, when I'm going through my treatment, stuff like that, you're not the same, you're weaker. My balance is off and whatnot. So my mom recalls that I want to run the bases. So I ran the bases. I took a round around first base, and I tripped and I fell, and I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing well. And the scary thing is actually when you're going through chemotherapy, your blood counts remain very low, because the chemo not only kills all the cancer cells, it kills all the rest of the cells.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my blood counts were so low. So if you end up getting a bruise or you start bleeding, there's a chance that it won't stop. So when I fell after running the bases, I get up and I saw some scratches on my knee and some bruising. I'm like, oh God, like this is not good. So I immediately stopped, got back in the car, and yeah, that was a pretty crazy story. But but I would say probably the hardest thing, which I don't share with a lot of people, one of the hardest things about this journey was probably in the first month when I was, I was taking a shot. I just got like 1 or 2 treatments already down, and I have about 12, 13 more left. I'm in the shower, put my hands in my head, and I take my hands out, and I see my hands are full of hair. And then I'm like, this is the scariest, most degrading thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was 15 still. I didn't know, like, come on. And that was scary because I was like, I saw my own hair fall out and I couldn't do anything about it. And that's definitely what changed me, made me grow up real fast, made me appreciate the little things in life with that. So
I was going to say, people talk about really going through something like that, how it might change it, but you've lived it.
yeah.
How did that change you? Not just on the field, obviously, and taking advantage of every opportunity and really going after things, but how did it change you beyond that?
So mentally ended my childhood real fast because my life stopped on a dime. I went from playing baseball to being in a hospital getting chemotherapy treatment. So my life changed real fast, grew up real fast. It's funny you say that because I took a mental age test the second I was done with my treatments, and I was still 16 at the time. So I had my birthday in the middle of my treatments, which is just fantastic. My 16th birthday.
Yeah, happy 16, right? That's
yeah,
sweet.
right. It was
Yeah.
terrible. And so I finished my treatments. I took a mental age test, still 16. It said I was 54. So I take this test and I'm like,
ages you. Wow.
and I'm like, yeah, you've been through some shit. Like it was pretty bad. So I saw some things which I probably shouldn't have seen at that age, either for myself or like when I'm in the clinic or the hospital and I'm myself getting treatment. And I look in the next room. I look in the next room and I see literally a 1 or 2 year old getting chemotherapy, and I'm like, this is horrible. Like what? They haven't even lived a life yet. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And I just saw some. I had an experience myself where I was very, very close to, seeing it, like death. My accounts were so low at one point. I was like in and out, and my mom was driving me to the hospital, and I got there. I got a blood transfusion, platelet transfusion, and the doctor said if I was about 20, 25 years older and I was about 40, and I hadn't gone in at the time I did, I probably would have had a heart attack and died or something like that. Like I had some brutal moments, so I grew up real fast.
Yeah, and now go back to high school, right? I mean, like how does that? It's just a different life than everybody else has had.
Yeah, they gave me the option actually to continue schooling during my treatment. They're like, you can do online schooling. I'm like, no. I'm like,
how would I even be able to focus on anything school related?
Exactly. And first of all, why do I want to learn something when I'm literally, dying right now? Like, I'm very open about this stuff. So like, and I joke about it. So I don't really care as much anymore, especially since I'm almost 5 years out. So I think back to, I'm like, why would a kid so sick want to do schoolwork? Like, I'd rather worry about my health. Exactly. I'd rather worry about my health. And I was young enough at the time, because I was really young for my grade of 2018, that I would just be able to reclass and make friends real fast because I'm a personal guy, and, just go on with life. So that's what I did.
Definitely. And you made a contact along the way. I mean, Ewing sarcoma, obviously rare. First of all, where you had it is like, rare isn't even the word. It's usually it hits your lower body, but you made a connection that really had a big impact on you in the sports world. Tell us about that a little.
Yes. So about, again, a month in my treatment. So I started my treatment 181 pounds. In the first month, I lost 17 pounds. So I was about 164 pounds, pretty pale, pretty skinny, skinniest I've ever been, really. And so the hospital I was at, Hackensack Hospital, is affiliated with the New York Giants. At the time, for the New York Giants, they had a linebacker by the name of Mark Herzlich. Mark Herzlich was a linebacker for Boston College. And when he was in college, he was also diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma in his hip area, which is the common area. Mine was in my cheekbone. So somehow Hackensack made that connection with me to have lunch with Mark during one of their practices, go to their practices, see the guys, play, do some drills, get some autograph stuff, take some pictures. I was like, hell yeah. So I had lunch with Mark, Strahan, a bunch of those guys. We just sat down. It's me, my mom, And so this is at lunch. They just finished practice, or they just finished like a segment of practice, got some food. And he's like, come on, let's go get some food. So I'm like, okay. So I get this little plate of food, and Mark comes back with this huge platter of, stacked on top of each other.
Right.
So I sit down. He goes, all right, before I teach you anything, give you any lessons, said, you got to eat more, dude. I'm like, okay, like, oh, anything you say. He's
Whatever you
famous.
say, Mark. Yeah.
He's a professional football player. I'm like, great. I'll do whatever. So he says, dude, I'm gonna let you know this. When I was going through treatment, he said, I was bald and I was fat and I didn't care. He said, if I had a steak, I put it between two buns and I would eat it. If I had a cheeseburger, I'd make a double cheeseburger, whatever it is. He's like, you gotta pack on weight, you gotta pack on food so your body can produce and fight and keep going. I say no more. And I was like, if Mark was able to do that, I'm going to do that. So from that point on, I was 164, and I ended my treatment on April 7th at 208 pounds. So I put on 44 pounds in that span. And that's probably the biggest thing that saved my life, was allowing my body to fight on its own. And you don't hear many stories like that. A lot of people
No.
that go through cancer treatments, they lose weight fast and they can't get it back, and the body's too weak. And I said, to hell with that. I'm going to put on weight. I'm going to let my body fight, and I'm going to come back, the same kid I was. So that's exactly what I did. And I'm forever thankful for Mark. I wish I still had a connection with him. I'm going to try and make a connection with him in the future. But that was definitely a life-changing moment for me.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a comeback story to beat all comeback stories out of that, and to go from there on the road to 95 is not the typical road to 95, but you come back then, I guess, right in 2017, 2018, you play your junior year, senior year, 2019, and still go D1 anyway to a great program.
That's right. That's right. I committed my junior year, going to my senior year at for UConn. Then my senior year at Indian Hills, I had a great year under Coach Hill, who's a great coach, great guy, and led me in a lot of great places. I had a great senior year. I led the state in strikeouts for as long as I can remember, until playoffs, because we didn't really do much in playoffs in states or counties, but led the state in strikeouts. I was a nominee for Player of the Year. I didn't win it, but my roommate at UConn, Sam Pavieri, actually won it, which was, if anyone's going to win it, I would let him win it,
Yeah.
because that's my boy. And that was just, I went 7-0. I had like a sub 1 ERA, whatever it was. Great year. And then and that was it. Why not become D1? And I did. So.
Yep. Now UConn didn't go. I mean, it wasn't the full movie ending at UConn, right? I mean, or just created a different movie.
Yeah.
But UConn, I guess you kind of got caught up in what so many other freshmen around the country got caught up in, was COVID and sort of the resulting backlog of players, right?
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So, I mean, that was kind of the story of it. You're in the middle of my freshman year of college and COVID hits. No one knows what it is. Everything's kind of up in the air, and everyone comes back because they get the free opportunity to come back. So on top of everyone coming back, about like almost all the roster and whatnot, my mental wasn't totally there, because I was confused with COVID and everyone coming back, my playing time, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? I think I need a fresh start. As much as I didn't want to leave, because I ended up doing so. But
Yeah.
I'm forever thankful for my time at UConn. Loved everyone there. I was just time for a change.
Great program. Obviously, it's one of the best in the Northeast. But you go from there to Bergen Community College,
Yes.
which you almost lost that entire season as well, right? If I recall, Bergen wasn't even going to play for a long portion of last year, and then
Yes.
had a very small schedule. Fortunately, this got you and Joe on the field.
Yeah.
But how did we perform when we finally were able to get on the field and throw for college in last spring?
Yeah. So funny you say that, because my success wasn't as much as I wanted it to be, or as high as I wanted it to be. It was my first experience in a college setting, actually pitching in a real season, shortened season, about 13, 14 games, no home games in the middle of COVID. So many things going on. I'm back home, so many moving parts. My mentally just, I wasn't there, wasn't prepared. And I made a big change for myself. So in the middle of the season, I actually don't share this to many people, so I'm going to share it on this interview right here. But I actually went to go see a therapist in order to get my mental in the right spot, and I did that. Helped me out of a large amount. It flipped my life 180. So that was big for my mental. Also, so my Bergen career was a life-changing thing for me because I saw where it was to be at the bottom of the bottom. Because like I told you, I didn't really face much adversity in a baseball sense before college. And UConn happened, it is what it is. And then I got to Bergen. I'm like, okay, you'll be fine. And I get there. I'm like, maybe you're not fine. Maybe you're not ready for it yet. So I took my mental health into another aspect. I was like, all right, you got to get that in order before anything else. So went to go see a therapist, started taking care of myself more. But the most eye-opening thing was when I went to California for summer ball this past summer. Changed my baseball career, changed my perspective on baseball forever. And now I'm totally good mentally, physically, ready to go. This season's going to be great. And see my name in draft board.
Definitely. What was if there was one thing that helped you turn around mentally? Because I can't, you didn't maybe have base, it was when you were on the field, it was pretty smooth up to that point, but it's enough life adversity for like 7 or 8 lifetimes up till then.
You're telling me.
What's the one thing that you learned from that process last spring that is going to help you most moving forward?
So the thing that helped me move forward the most from the spring/summer was that it's a kid's game. I've been playing this game since I was 5 years old. And the most life-changing thing for me is I go to California. In the spring, I'm trying to still figure myself out, but I go to California in the spring and I'm put with a host family, someone I don't know, this family I don't know, across the entire country. My host mom, Nicole, host dad, James, and then I have a host brother and sister. Host brother's Ben, host sister's Maddie, and Ben plays baseball. So I'm like, I get to California a few days before my first game, and I go to one of his games. I'm like, okay, I go to California because I want to get everything out of my mind. What can I learn right here to help me for the future? So I'm at his baseball game, right? And he's 11 at the time. He turned 12 when I was there. And I'm like, all right, they're picking up a ball and they're throwing. They're hitting, they're pitching. The game's the same. The ball's the same. I'm like, why am I making this so much more difficult than it is? Because there's a whole world up here that doesn't exist. Reality is reality, but up here, so many things are going on and whatnot. I'm like, you're making this so complicated. It's a kid's game. Like, it's just the only thing that's different is everyone's bigger, stronger, and throws harder. Everything else is the same. Umpires, gloves, bat, ball, whatever it is. So I'm like, chill out. Don't make the game go by so fast. Cherish it and have some fun. And that was the biggest thing for me was, being a kid again, having that confidence and just going out there and playing like it's a football game in my backyard. So that's exactly what I did.
Absolutely. And you said 5 years from cancer-free on May 1st coming up.
Yes.
So we're a few months away. You've got a goal for that day, specifically for that day that I want to ask you to share with us. We're at 95 now, or we've maxed 95 now, but we can't push past that. So what is what's happening on May 1st? May
1st, we have a game at home against LIU. May 1st, 2022, I will hit 98 miles an hour. That will be my 5-year anniversary of being cancer-free. I'm going to be all energized, all ready to go, because that 5-year window is a big mark for cancer survivors where they're really putting everything in the rear view. So at that day, I'm going to be feeling good. I'm going to let it loose and I'm going to hit 90. I'm going to hit an 8 and I know it.
Poor LIU, right?
While throwing strikes. Don't forget though.
That's right. That's right. Otherwise you just do a pull down and say you're at 104 or something like that.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Josh, we certainly wish you the best. Definitely be following Sacred Heart this year, keeping an eye on where you are. Let's get let's take that next step, draft day. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just want to give a quick shout out to a bunch of people that helped me as well, because I know this will be going a lot of places. My trainer, Jerry Forestieri, my pitching coach, Evan Daniele, my advisor, and one of my closest friends, mentors ever, Tommy Barbella, and my parents. Everyone else along the way, my physical therapist, Nick Mangone, like everybody has been such a great help to me, and all my teammates, friends, everything. It's been quite the journey, and I'm not done yet. So I want to thank everybody for that.
You've got a lot of great people surrounding you, as you just kind of rattled off there. So that's what makes great things happen, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir, for sure.
Josh Cohen, our guest here on today's episode. We thank everyone for joining us and look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.